What's up, everybody? It's your boy Prince, and today I'm back with you with another video. Today we got a movie review. Okay, so I went to go see the movie Him. Yeah, the movie Him. Yeah, the movie Him is the first amalgamation of a horror film and a football film. So I had to see it. I had to go see it. I was excited as heck. I seen the trailer not too long ago, and it looked very interesting. You could see like the satanic symbolism, football themes and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, I want to see what they do with this, right? And I had my assumptions, and then at the end of the trailer, I seen it said produced by Jordan Peele. So I said produced by Jordan Peele. I'm like, well, it don't say written by Jordan Peele, so let me look into this, right? Now, Jordan Peele produced Nope, Get Out, Us, those great films, right? Now, in my opinion, I like Get Out. I like Us, but I think Nope was in my opinion, Nope was a flop. I enjoyed the movie. I really did enjoy the movie, but it wasn't on the same type of tier that Get Out and Us was on, just being honest. So, it was different though, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'm excited to see it. And then, I found out that it wasn't written by him. So I was like, all right, well, let me go ahead and just check it out. Because, visually, it looks amazing, right? And so, so there we have that. But I want to put this disclaimer out first. I'm going to put a lot of spoiler. I'm going to tell it all. I'm going to be like Wendy Williams, like today with this movie, all right? So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, pause the video or something like that and come back later, all right? Because I'm going to be dropping a lot of gems. I'm going to be dropping a lot of, things that people may have not caught, right? And things that people have caught, right? So here we go. So the movie Him. The movie Him is, like I said, it's the first amalgamation of football and horror, right? And so, of course, when you watch the trailer, you're going to see that obviously Marlon Wayans, he's playing the GOAT, the greatest of all time in the movie. Football player named Isaiah White. He won 8 Super Bowls. But what was weird to me is that he only won 1 MVP from what the movie's saying, okay? They got to at least give the GOAT like 3 to 4 MVPs. Your boy Peyton Manning got 5 of them. Aaron Rodgers got 4. Brady got 3, I believe. But he could have, I feel like he could have won. He would have won 4 had not Aaron Rodgers beat him that one year for the MVP, But because they both had amazing seasons. It was back in, the 2019 season for the 2020 Super Bowl. The Super Bowl where he actually played Baby Goat, okay? The kid, my homeboy, right? Now, if you don't notice, I actually got on a throwback Tom Brady jersey on. Yeah, I had to bring out the GOAT's jersey. This is actually a throwback Padres jersey from when he played in high school, okay? So if you didn't know, I'm actually a jersey collector. I have like one of the dopest jersey collections as a individual collector on the planet. I had a platform, but they took it down and all that kind of stuff years ago. So I don't really post about it, but I'll probably get back to it. But, I've been busy. But anywho, all right. So basically, the movie is about goats, right? Greatest of all time. And so you have the main character. His name is Cameron Cade. Okay, so it's basically Cam Cade. And Cam Cade is pretty much just like he look like Mahomes, basically, right? He's just like Patrick Mahomes, right? And I guess the dad would be Patrick Mahomes Sr., but I'm not going to put that jacket on him because I know he's not like that. Now, Patrick Mahomes Sr. is actually a real nigga, all right? He's a real dude, right? So if you don't know, do your research on him. But I'll put it this way, right? So, so basically, right? So the whole premise of the movie is, you have the main character, Cam Cade, and he's about to go into the NFL draft. He's like the top prospect. And he's supposed to be like the next GOAT, right? So, honestly, the better comparison would be more so like Michael Jordan versus like LeBron James, because LeBron James was like the only athlete that was super hyped up to the point where they're like, oh yeah, he's just going to be the next GOAT or whatever. He's going to be the GOAT or whatever, right? He's the only athlete that was really put on that type of echelon, that much pressure from a young age, and he actually delivered. Right now, when I say delivered, I don't necessarily mean that he beat out Jordan to be the GOAT, but I'm just saying that with his longevity and all the records and stuff like that, I mean, really, because most of the time, people, they just kind of wane into the distant, right, and then to the abyss. All right, they go to the shadow realm, right? So we got the Yu-Gi-Oh right here, so your boy, we know all about the shadow realm around here, right? So that's a lenticular right there. But basically, I know y'all like, what is this dude talking about? But let me get back into the movie. I apologize. So basically, it's about goats, right? And so, the new guy on the block, he's trying to go ahead and, get drafted and stuff like that. However, he gets whacked in the head and by this really weird looking figure, right? And he's attacked and he has a concussion. He has like this cut on his head. Now, he has this very bad brain injury, right? To where it's questioned whether or not he'll be able to ever really like play again or whatnot. And he skipped the combine, right? Now, the weird thing about the movie too is the fact that they never really gave him any sort of time to see if he would actually be able to play. It's just like he got whacked in the head and then it's like, oh, my career's over basically, right? So that was kind of weird. They're like, oh yeah, he don't need to go to the combine. Okay, but when are you going to get back on the field? It would have been nice to see him get back on the field and maybe illustrate that he did not have it in him so that it would make more sense for him to go with his mentor to go ahead and try to resurrect his career. Now, here's the thing. So essentially, his mentor was Isaiah White, right? The GOAT, right? Now, this movie, a lot of people, I'm going to put it like this. You read the reviews, you're going to see a lot of people talking about this movie and a lot of sheep done reviewed this movie. So they're going to say it was bad. That was a bad joke, but we're going to run with it, all right? So they're going to say the movie was bad. They're going to say it was trash and all that kind of stuff. Now, there was some redeeming features about this movie. I think that this movie I think it could have been a lot better, but it was just really too short. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But because of that, the way that it became structured, it was kind of like broken down into days. So when, the Cam K guy, when he pretty much, the main character, when he pretty much was told that, okay, we're going to give you this opportunity to go under the GOAT's wing. And basically, you can go ahead and try to, get your opportunity so that you can take over the franchise. And the franchise that the GOAT played for, they were called the San Antonio Saviors. Okay. Now, this is very important. If you look at the movie poster, right, you'll see that it's Isaiah White over Cameron Cade, right? Like standing and, holding his shoulders. He got 8 rings, right? You look on the rings, you'll see on one hand, you'll see it pretty much just spelled SOS, right? The SOS can mean various things, right? Help, right? A sign for help, right? But it's also son of Satan too, right? And then if you look, you see the goalpost behind his head. It looks like, pretty much like devil horns and, you have Cameron Cade and, it's just like everything down to the colors that they use and everything. It just looks really, really cool, right? It looks really cool. Very intriguing. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I got to go check this movie out, right? Now here's the thing, right? And so you'll see that he's definitely under the influence of some type of supernatural being, right? Some type of supernatural power, right? In order to obtain these 8, Super Bowl rings or just championship rings, because it's not the NFL because they didn't have the licensing and all that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna call them Super Bowl rings, basically, right? So he has these 8 rings, and so he brings in Cameron Cade. He have him go all the way out. I guess I'm assuming somewhere out in the desert, somewhere that's probably near San Antonio, Texas, somewhere, right? And it's secluded. It's a very weird looking facility. It's his home, but it's the goat's home, but it's a very weird looking facility. And then there's like this big football, pretty much like a football field, and I would say like a football stadium right next to the house, right? And it looks really cool, right? But it looks very, very, very suspicious. It's like, okay, it's out in the middle of nowhere. Then you had these crazed out fans right outside of it, right? It's kind of far from like where the actual house is, but there's like a entry gate, right? And so crazed out fans look very weird, very evil, very demonic. The weird thing is that they're called the saviors, but they all look like some damn demons, right? And so here's the thing about the symbolism and all that kind of stuff, right? When you think about the goat, right, you think of the greatest of all time, but you also think about, like the satanic Baphomet and all that kind of stuff, right? Satanic symbols and things like that, pentagrams on it, right? Now here's the thing. So what happens to goats, right? You be the greatest of all time, but goats get sacrificed. And in this movie, the goat has to get sacrificed. And to become the goat, it's all about sacrifices. Like the main theme of this movie is sacrifices, okay? It's all about sacrifices. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice to become the GOAT? That's basically what this movie's about, right? And so, the thing is that when Cam Cade first went into Marlon Wayne's, Isaiah White's house, he said something that stuck out to me. And he was saying that, there was 2 things. First, he went into the history of football and how the game of football pretty much started, right? And he mentioned something that kind of gave me a little flashback. And he mentioned how Yale was playing some Native Americans in football. And basically he was going into why the quarterback position was created. And the Native Americans were getting clobbered by these Yale students, right? And so that's why the quarterback position had to be created in the first place. But a lot of people may not realize this, but as an Ivy Leaguer, people typically they think like the Ivy League is just like a name that was bestowed upon the 8 Ivy League universities because of some sort of prestigious, award or something like that, right? Designation. However, it's not. Okay, it's the Ivy League. The 8 schools that the Ivy League is comprised of is literally just called Ivy League schools because it was a football league. Okay, that's it. That's all it was, right? Of course, those 8 universities, like for example, you got like Harvard University. You got like, okay, well, we got the first university in the United States. And so, of course, usually the first universities are going to be probably your best because they're going to have larger endowments and all that kind of stuff. But then Marlon, I'm going to just say Marlon because I'd rather say Marlon, right? For Marlon Wayne. Marlon went into the fact that, these natives would actually fight each other to the death like gladiators in order to get, the powers, right? Of, their ancestors, right? And he said only one come out. We got two gladiators going to the Coliseum, only one come out, right? Victorious. And that really stuck out to me. And I thought to myself instantly there that they're going to have to fight to the death at some point in this movie in order for someone to either be crowned the new GOAT or for Marlon to be, to remain the GOAT, right? So that stuck out to me, right? And so the movie, Cam K, the only thing about him is that he's seen a lot of weird stuff in this movie throughout the movie, but he really didn't react like normally, like how a normal person would. He's just like, okay, let's play football, like to everything. Like, let's play football, about 60-minute football. Like, he got that Mike Tomlin mentality. It's just like, But here's the funny thing, right? So they start doing drills and stuff like that. That part was very entertaining. The movie actually kind of like looked like a Gatorade commercial, right? Like it was just like like a Gatorade Super Bowl commercial. The cinematography was amazing, right? Like it felt like it was great, right? I really loved that part of the movie. Like the colors they used, the imagery, that was amazing. Storyline was kind of weak though, right? So, he's doing all these drills and stuff like that, and he has to be at this pretty much this, this short training camp. And it's broken down by days. So the first 3 days were pretty damn cool, right? Now after that, that's when it starts to get a little shaky, right? Now there are some really cool things about, some of these days and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, the Cameron Cake, yeah, the main character, he just don't really react to a lot of things. And I don't know, he just seems too down for everything. Like, but here's the thing though. There is a great thing that he did. He did pretty much make well known from the jump. His priority in life for him was God, family, then football. Okay. Now, Marlon Wayne's was pretty much like the opposite. It was football, family, God, right? And so they're pretty much like the polar opposites, right? Like Marlon was like the psychopathic, by any means necessary, I'm going to win. And so, they're doing these drills and stuff like that. You got this guy getting hit in the face with footballs. I thought that part was great, only in the sense of he did raise the stakes of, okay, if you mess up, this is what's going to happen to your teammate, right? Like he made it like real high stakes. Personally, I'm a big fan of that. Not like the guy getting hurt, but making things high stakes, right? Kind of like if you look at life like Squid Game, okay? If you think about it like that, you'll probably get a lot more done. You know what I mean? Like if somebody put a gun to your head and said, name 5 Blueface songs, right? You're probably going to be dead, right? But me, I'm always prepared. I can name 5 Blueface songs. I actually like Blueface, right? So I'm just saying, like there's things that are, I'll put it like this. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I mean for Blueface to catch a stray right there. But yeah, most people, they don't really, they haven't really listened to like his discography, so they wouldn't know like, he actually has a decent amount of songs that are quite good. Now here's the thing, right? So as you're watching the movie, you're seeing all these crazy things going on. You got the symbolism and all that, but they got like a lot of random scenes that pop up, right? And so you're watching like, okay, all right, that looks cool. It looks good and all that kind of stuff. But they really didn't do a good job with connecting these things. Okay. But in essence, this movie is about how football is a religion. Okay. And football is the religion of so many fans, right? And you have the team called the San Antonio Saviors, right? You have the players who are the saviors, right? The GOAT is pretty much like the prophet, right? The Messiah of that religion. And then, you know, you have the gods who would be pretty much like everyone, just kind of like controlling things in the background, right? The source power or whatnot. Um, and so you have all that, right? And then you had the mascots too. And the mascots actually depicted false idols, okay? False idols, like people who are celebrated, but they really didn't put in no work, right? It's like, why are we celebrating these folks, right? Now, in the beginning of the movie, well, I wouldn't, well, yeah, it was towards the beginning from what I remember. Marlon did say something along the lines of, he said, you know what's the opposite of a savior? And then he said, a mascot, right? And so I thought to myself, I'm like, why would he say mascot? You know, like I thought he was gonna say something else, right? You know how you try to predict what you're about to say. And he said mascot. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, mascot. They put on the costume and they cheer. They get the crowd hyped up and stuff like that. The crowd's happy to see them, but the football players are the ones who are really putting in the work, right? So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So as the movie goes on, right, Cameron Cade is he's tempted by different things such as like different types of vices, like sex and things like that. And he's like, no, I'm not going to cheat on my girlfriend and all that kind of stuff, right? And so it was nice to see him stick to his guns. But the weird thing too is that, you know, Marlon was pretty much molding him into psychologically being like him, right? So even though Cameron was still like himself, he kind of was just nonchalant. I feel like he was too nonchalant. Like if I seen some crazy ass stuff like that, you know, the movie would have been over a lot quicker, right? Like, you know, there's a point in the movie where, you know, they get up in each other's face on the football field in the indoor facility, right? And you know, Marlon brought these players in and stuff like that, and you know, he's like, "What are you willing to sacrifice?" You know what I mean? And see, if it was me in the movie would have been over quick because I just would have been like, "Bow!" Right, and it'd have been over. You know what I mean? That movies don't last long with me. I'll tell you this, like I'm logical. You know, I wouldn't last long in the movie. I'll put this. I wouldn't make the movie last long. The movie would be pretty damn short. So you had some weird things going on, right? So Marlon has this wife who's in the movie and she plays a role in the whole thing, but it's really kind of unclear. Like she wasn't really necessarily necessary in the movie. I'm gonna put it like that, right? So she just comes around him, you know, pretty much to tempt him with different things like women and all that kind of stuff and sex. And then, you know, and then she gives hints and stuff like that, right? Now Isaiah White, Moreland, he pretty much comes around and he says some things where it would stick out, right? Like I believe it was the scene that when I believe they were in the sauna, and he said to him, he said, you know, don't be like me, you know, find your own path to greatness. And he pretty much kind of started to explain that, you know, he pretty much sold his soul in order to, you know, be the greatest player of all time. Because when Cameron Cade was a kid, Isaiah White got injured and he broke his leg within the game. And it was during a Super Bowl, I believe. Like from what I remember, it was during a Super Bowl game. He broke his leg and it looked really, really, really bad. Now, when you look at the poster for the movie, you notice that his pinky is broken, right? Like how his leg was broken during that game. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, damn, it looked like from the poster that a promise is broken. Like it's like a pinky promise, right? And a lot of promises are meant to be broken, as they say, right? Now I keep my promises, but that's a whole nother story. So so he's talking to him. He's like, yeah, don't be like me. Don't do this. Don't go ahead and do this way. And I didn't have anything. I had a bad upbringing, and and he starts to talk to Cameron about how his upbringing was in a little bit, and Cameron Cade, he's like, yeah, family's everything, and really, Cameron Cade, his father was his inspiration to play. And since he was young, his father pretty much just pushed him to play, right? And and he was just like obsessed with getting him to play. And he revealed that at one point he told his father that he didn't want to play anymore, right? And then his father passed away, and then he pretty much kept playing and stuff like that in order to fulfill a legacy that his father would have wanted, right? And so Marlon goes in and talks about how his worst nightmare, how it plays out, right? And so, so then, there was like this crazy ass scene, there's this fan who tried to kill Cameron Cade because they love Marlon so much. And it was weird as hell because the fan tried to kill him in the sauna. And then Marlon actually ended up killing the fan, but he French kissed her before killing her. But I feel as though he did that because she loves him that damn much that she would go and try to kill him, and like Cameron Cade. And so he killed her, but he loved her so much at the same time because I was like one of his biggest fans, right? His crazy fanatics, right? Because fan is short for fanatics, right? So, and so that scene was just very odd. And then there was two other fans that was with her, and they pretty much just let them go. Like that's what was weird to me. And then Cameron Cage just pretty much like walked away. But I think that scene kind of showed like the dangers of religions. When you got like people who are really extremists, right? Where they're willing to go and kill in order to protect a religious figure or whatnot, like an image, right? That people bestow on a pedestal, or I would say in this case, an altar, right? And so that's how I seen it. I seen it as bestowing it to such a high, I was about to say pinnacle, right? But pretty much like, that's like the summit of worship, right? And so I was like, okay, I get that, right? I think that's what the writer was trying to get at. But here's the thing. This is another reason why I'm not like I'm not a fan. Like I don't like. Here's the thing about sports. Okay, now this is a little segment. I'm gonna go off. I would say not a segment, but a tangent. But this is going to be like a little segment within this video. But it's going to make sense in a second. So basically, I used to be a sports fan to the point where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to root for this one team because I like this team. But something that I noticed how stupid it was, right? It wasn't the fact that, I'm wasting 3 to 4 hours of my day watching a football game. And then, you got some millionaires playing and they're making these billionaires money for a nonprofit organization that's making so much profit for throwing around the pigskin, right? Now it's entertainment, so they could rig it if they want to because it's literally considered entertainment, right? I don't think it is necessarily, but I would just say, like, I don't think it's rigged. There might be some things that are rigged here and there, but I don't think it's rigged to the point where it's just like pre-selected. But what do I know, right? But one thing I did notice was that when I went to some games and stuff like that after. I was just like, I got into fantasy football and I started liking all the different teams and the players from different teams because, if you score me some points, it's something I have more of a personal connection with my fantasy teams and stuff because I started my own league and it's been going on for years and years. And so, and I made the top of the leaderboard on NFL.com and all that kind of stuff. I know that stuff sounded relevant to y'all, but bear with me. So basically, I started to see that the hate that the fan bases had for another fan base, it was just so irrational. Like I went to games, I seen people fighting and all that kind of stuff, and I seen people literally willing to kill because their team lost and another team won. And I'm like, this is all entertainment. I like the entertainment aspect to it, but I'm like, damn, this is just kind of like, things such as like racism or religion, where, you have people who are willing to hurt someone just because they believe something that's different or they support something that's different, right? Um, and so I think that is another part, the fanatic part of the woman trying to kill Kate, Cameron Cade. I think that goes into that whole aspect of um, sports fanatics, pretty much being like religious extremists. Okay, and so so that was cool, and then they kind of start to show more and more signs of Cameron Cade. Pretty much, they're trying to push him to go sell his soul. And one thing was one character that pretty much stood out was the pretty much the doctor, the goat's doctor, right? And he would have um, these bags of blood for like blood transfusions and things like that. And he was taking the blood from Isaiah White, Marlon Wayans. And so he took the blood and he started injecting things into Cameron Cade throughout the film, and um, and he kept telling Cameron Cade things like, like get out, like run, like run, basically, right? And so he was giving him them signs and stuff like that, and he was talking about regrets that he had because he don't have any life. And I think that the movie did well with the whole theme on the sports fans look at the goats, the players, as the saviors, right? But the saviors don't really have, like, the players don't really have any sort of agency, right? Like they don't have any sovereignty. They don't have any real freedom to do what they want to do. They're pretty much just like pawns on a chessboard, right? And then some pawns can be, you know, some pawns could be upgraded, right, into other positions, but for the most part, it's a sad existence, right? And even Marlon Wayans, Isaiah White, mentioned that you know it's like if you're in prison and you're dying of starvation, and someone offers you food or freedom, you don't have much of a choice. And he felt as though he didn't have a choice because his family didn't have money and all that kind of stuff, and he pretty much just did it, for the spoils, right? Um, but when he said that, I'm like, yeah, there is a choice. There definitely is a choice. But I got what he was saying. But I would have chose freedom. That's what I would have done. You know what I mean? But without freedom, you don't got shit. You know, shoot, you can give me $1 billion right now, but if you dictate exactly how I live, and what you're dictating isn't anything that I like, especially, oh, it's a wrap. And them dudes they were selling their souls and stuff like that in that movie. So that was something even worse than that. Like, once you get to that type of level, it's you just take me out. Just take me out, bro. Like that's it. But yeah, but basically, so the movie goes on, and then you start seeing more and more rituals and things like that. Cameron Cade, he has like all these different these visions, and these reoccurring nightmares, and visions of him being attacked by this estranged mascot, right? And then as the movie progresses, um, he starts to interact with the wife more, and then there's like these initiation scenes, and and then pretty much at a certain point, he's pretty much uh, being inducted into, like, he's pretty much going to these parties and stuff like that, and he's being introduced and inducted into this satanic society, right? And so, but he doesn't know it. So he's over there drinking blood and all this kind of stuff and not even realizing it, right? And his vision's going out. He's seeing things. The doctor's warning him, saying like run and all this kind of stuff. Then he, after the party, he wakes up and he can't move. He's laying on this, he's laying on this ice table, right? And he can't move, and so he takes the blood, these, it's like IVs and like blood transfusion stuff out, um, and then he moves towards this syringe that says run, right? Now it has like that emoji, kind of like where it's like your hands are just up, right? The shoulder shrug one. Now here's the weird thing about it. How in the hell did he see that so far away? That's the one thing that didn't make sense to me. It didn't, like, it wasn't like it was like a close up of him looking at it and like, oh yeah, I see that from way across the room. Like, you Chris Brown, like, excuse me, miss, I see you from across the room. Like, no, you can't see that far. Like, that was unrealistic as hell. Like, that was kind of stupid. I'll tell you that. But it said run, R-U-N, in capital letters with the shrug, right? Symbol, right? So it's like, okay, like, people are like, well, why does it say run? It's like, maybe it's R-U-N, like, R-U-N to this plan so that we can go and get this paper, right? You can become the goat. So he crawls over because he loses his strength, and he puts that in. He gets his strength back immediately, pretty much. He runs. He's seen Marlon Wayans in the film room. He's in the film room, and he finds out that the film room is pretty much just like this very odd-looking screen, right? It looks more like an eyeball, right? It looks more like an eye with like a bunch of fans just cheering, right? And he's just looking up and watching it, right? And he's mesmerized by it, right? And it looks very demonic, right? And so, Cameron K comes in and he sees that, and you look around the room, you see like the jerseys of all the other goats that came before him. So Marlon pretty much explained it to where, the goats were, they pretty much like, just like the Native Americans, he explained earlier in the film that, they would share that power, it's in the blood, that he now has the power because it's in his blood now, and that pretty much for the most part, like, it's like, in order to be the goat, you have to beat the goat, right? And so they have to fight to the death because Marlon didn't want to give up his goat status. Now, here's a weird thing to it, right? There's a few weird things. So, number one, why didn't they just make them put their skills on the football field? Like, this is supposed to be a football movie. It's supposed to be a football/horror movie. Now, if you talk about skills being the GOAT, whooping someone's ass isn't top on the list, okay? Like, when we talk about Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, we only talk about, okay, who could beat whose ass, right? Like Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson might whoop everybody's ass. But here's the thing. Now, the thing is this, right? I thought that maybe it would have been better if they would have just incorporated like skill tests and stuff. Like, we never got to see a game outside of the introduction of the movie, right? Like, there was no football played, like an actual football game. Like, it would have been cool to see how, Marlon Wayne's character, Isaiah White, would have gotten better and better and showed like some crazy skills that he may have had because of, doing the ritual and making the sacrifice and stuff like that and selling his soul. That would have been cool to see, but we didn't get to see that. No, we didn't get to see that at all. We just got to see them fight it to the death. Cameron K beats him on the head with the with the MVP trophy and then a helmet, right? And kills him. All right, so it's like, okay, this is random as hell. They were pretty much cool, but the thing is that it seemed more like before that there was another way of doing it. It seemed like Marlon Wayans could have just pretty much passed the torch, right, freely, based off of whatever his contract entailed. Because when there was a scene before that where they were like out shooting, right? They were shooting pretty much like outside gun range, and they pull like this mascot. There's a body inside of it. Obviously, there's someone inside this mascot suit, and so Cameron K shot it. But before he shot it, Marlon said, "Hey, if you shoot this, could just give you everything: the money, the fame, the fortune, the power, all that kind of stuff." And Cameron K looked at him and said, "No, I want to earn it. I want to earn it the hard way, right, or whatever, right?" And I thought that was kind of okay. Now he's becoming real sadistic and all this kind of stuff. But it seemed to me like if he just would have said, "Oh yeah, cool," he would have shot it the way he did shoot it anyway, which was weird because you could tell there was like an actual body in there. And this is what I mean by Cameron Cage's character. He just, I don't know, he just seemed nonchalant. Okay, he just seemed absent-minded for the most part. Maybe that concussion on his head, maybe that really messed things up for him. But yeah. But yeah, so you had that, and then so I thought it was interesting that all of a sudden Isaiah White wants to hold on to the GOAT crown, and I'm just like, okay, he's holding on to the GOAT crown and all that kind of stuff, and then I don't know, it's just kind of weird, because it's just like, okay, and then it's like, okay, if you kill the other GOAT, what happens to the other GOAT? They just say that they died mysteriously, so no one's going to expect, like, oh yeah, like, oh, mysteriously, every time someone becomes a GOAT, they pass away, and then there's a new GOAT coming. Like, that's dumb. I'm sorry, that's stupid. All right, and then after he kills him, he goes outside. He walks to the curtain, and it's kind of like he goes to the curtain, and then it goes to the tunnel, right? And then he goes out the tunnel, and it's like there's cheerleaders. You got the owners, you got his agent, you got the big dude that whacked him on the head in the first place. You got him out there, and and they pretty much asked him, and you got Isaiah White's wife, and she pretty much told him to sign a contract, and they said, "Hey, sign a contract," and Cameron Cage said no, right? And it's kind of crazy because when he went, like a little bit before all this, he was at this party and all that kind of stuff, and his cross was backwards. And now it was to the front again. And so I was like, okay, the symbolism, right? They had him at the Last Supper at the party and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is obvious symbolism, right? To Christianity, right? And so he goes out there, and and this is actually the scene where like they showed it in the trailer a lot, where if you look at him, if you look in the background, there's like the goat symbol, right? The satanic goat behind him. And then if you look closely, you'll see that like the clouds and stuff is like his wings, right? And so it's like him defying that, like he's going against the grain, right? So he ends up basically saying no and killing everybody. Okay, he start kicking their ass, right? Now, the one thing that was kind of weird, right, that took me by surprise is the fact that they said that his father actually they groomed him as a kid, like they groomed him his whole life to become the GOAT, right? And so his dad ended up dying. So his dad, like, here's the thing. I believe that they killed his dad after Cameron Cage told his dad, "Hey, I don't want to play anymore." And maybe he told them like, "Oh, he doesn't want to play anymore, and I don't want to force him to play." And they killed his ass, right? And that's the thing. So he seen a picture of his dad, the owner, and him when he was a kid, and and then he just went off. And I guess at this point he figured, well, his dad was his. I'm gonna just put it this way, okay? His dad was a bitch ass nigga, and he realized that. So he's like, all right, F it, because it's just like, okay, up to that point he was living for his family. It's like, okay, now his family set him up and all that kind of stuff. So, there's no telling if his mom knew or whatnot, but it's just like, okay, well, all right, well, I'm gonna just take everybody out. So he takes everybody out, and then that's pretty much the end of the movie. That's it, right? Now there's an alternative ending where he actually signs the deal, and then Marlon Wayne's his character is at a restaurant eating pizza with his family, watching the game. Okay, now a lot of people, um, they're like, oh yeah, I wish it had a different ending and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it seemed rushed because pretty much like where it started getting crazy, crazy, it was only within like the last like 15, 16 minutes. And so it was just too crammed, right? Like I feel as though if they stretched the movie out a little more, um, and it went into more detail, right? I think that would have been better, right? Now they had like the satanic symbolism and all that, so the guy got the agent, um, got sacrificed and all this kind of stuff, and I mean all that stuff was cool to see, but it was rushed. It was very rushed, very chaotic. But it was nice to see him get his lick back. I'm not going to hold you because I'd have been pissed off too. Like, okay, all this was pretty much my whole life was a sham. All right, now I'm mad at everybody, right? So he went and he knocked everybody off, and that's it. Now you'll be able to see the original ending of the movie once pretty much like the Blu-rays come out and all that kind of stuff. So can't wait to watch that when that comes out. But yeah, but overall, I think that the movie was better than what the critics said it was. But I think that overall, it could have been better. Uh, there was a lot of things that there was a lot of hit or miss. Like they did fumble the ball. I'll put it that way. They fumbled the ball at certain points right throughout the movie, and you could tell which points were this review. And then pretty much at the end, that was like a pick six. Like they just threw the up. You know what I mean? It's like a pick six in the end zone. You know, it's just they didn't make really any real like connections. But I did think like the visuals were really cool, like seeing the jets fly over red, white, and blue. Um, as he's standing there in victory. I thought that was cool, but yeah, but it's just like, okay, what happens then, right? Like, you know, because he killed the owner, right? He killed the owner of the team. You know, you come out, everybody's dressed up. You know, of course, they're like in some part of some sort of cult, and they got like these pig masks on and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, well, he slayed the pigs, and he cooked them, and he made bacon and all that. But now it's just like, okay, well, you got your pork chops, your bacon, and and all that. But it's like, okay, now you eating, but where's this going, right? And then that was just pretty much it. Like that's it, and it just ended. Some people wanted it to be more of a cliffhanger. Some people want it to be more so like the typical route where he signs his soul away and he starts to win Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff. But then it's just kind of like, well, we kind of already got that from the beginning with the Marlon character. So, I mean, it's going to be cool to be able to see it. But I could have done a lot more. I'll put it that way. I could have done a lot more had I been given like creative control over the movie per se, right? So, yeah. So I mean, the movie wasn't as bad as it is claimed to be, but it could be better, But it was just really cool to see the football themes and all that kind of stuff. But I wish they did put more football in there, you know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the movie. I would love to see what people like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and them would think about the movie, and get their take on it. That'd be amazing. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace.